Hello, everyone. So today we have an enormously interesting interview with one of the greatest English teachers, certified trainer, church pastor, and doctor in religion and theology, Walter Mullican. He was my English teacher on the MGI English courses, that is Michael Gott International, twice, and I had the real pleasure to be mentored by Walter. So today we'll talk about some free English courses that he is offering. And I would like to ask him also about his life, his biography, his origin, and so on and so forth. So hi, Walter.
Hello, Mark. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How are you doing? And what's the situation with the coronavirus in Oklahoma in the United States? Do you still have a lockdown?
Well, Mark, I'm doing well, thank you. I have managed not to get the coronavirus. My wife and I both have been blessed that neither one of us have had the virus. A number in our family have had it, of our adult children, but no one got very, very ill with it. So we're grateful for that. My wife and I both have had the first vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, and so we're now waiting to get the second shot, which we'll probably do next week. Things in Oklahoma have improved dramatically with the virus just in the last few weeks. And so the number of new cases has come down dramatically. The number of deaths has dropped. And so because of that, things are beginning to open up again. In just a few weeks, we think all of the mask mandates will be taken away so that you don't have to wear a mask everywhere you go. And so schools next week, schools here will be fully back in person. And so things are changing. Now, in a great part of the United States, this is true. Not everywhere. There's still places where there's still larger numbers or new cases of the virus. They're attributing much of this to the fact that many are getting the vaccine. For example, here in Oklahoma, about 35% of our population has received the vaccine. Now, the population of Oklahoma is about 3.5 million people for the entire state, which is about the population of the city of Kyiv. Wow. But about 35% of our people here in our state have received the vaccine. And so the idea is that it's had an impact on reducing the virus. So people are feeling hopeful here. I think people are feeling joyful. They're looking forward to getting back to being able to kind of live their lives and in the patterns and the ways that they were prior to the virus.
Mm-hmm. So what's the situation in the United States in general? Is it the same, to 35%?
It's getting there. They hope to have 200 million people receive the vaccination by May. That would be about 3/4 of the United States. I think it would be somewhere in the 70 to 80% of the population having received the vaccination. It may be just a little bit higher than that. So yes, there's a great anticipation that things are better. And so yes, it's looking better in that way.
Mm-hmm. So first, could you tell us a few words about yourself, your origin, maybe education? And I heard that you have a large family and a lot of pets, like dogs. Is it true? And a lot of degrees.
Yes, I grew up here in Oklahoma. I was born in the state of Texas, but my family moved back to Oklahoma, and so I'm from here. My wife was born here, and we grew up in the same town together, met in high school, married really at an early age. I was 18 and she was 19. And we have 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. They're all grown. And we have 2 grandsons. And then we have a new granddaughter that's on the way. Our oldest daughter is expecting. And we just found out day before yesterday that she's going to have a little girl. And her name is going to be Maya. So we're all excited about this new granddaughter.
Right.
Who's coming in August. And then all of my kids all have dogs. That's why I said that I have 2 grandsons, but I have 7 granddogs. So the kids all have dogs. Kathy and I don't have any pets. We don't have a pet fish. We don't have, they just bring their dogs here and we get to see them. And sometimes they want us to watch their dogs, to dog sit for them, if you would. Growing up in Shawnee, when I graduated high school, after I sensed and knew that God was calling me to be in ministry as a pastor, I went to the Oklahoma Baptist University and received a Bachelor of Arts degree in religion. And then when I finished there, I moved on to Texas, to the city of Fort Worth, Texas, where we have a large seminary, and I did a master's degree in theology there. And then later, after I had pastored for a few years, I decided that I wanted to expand my education further, and so I did a doctoral degree, and so I have a D-Min, essentially you could say in theology, that I earned in 2002, and something I really enjoyed because it was a whole different level of learning and understanding and working with others. So that's a little bit about me and what my story is growing up here in Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm. So why did you decide to devote your life to religion, to become a pastor?
Well, that happened when I was a young man in high school, Mark. I had grown up in a family that did not have a religious background. Well, I guess they did, but we never, when I was growing up, we never went to church. My parents never sent me to church at all. But when I was in high school, I met the young lady who became my wife, and she grew up in a family that was involved in a church. And faith was very important to them. And so I began attending church because of this young woman. And because of that, I began to hear the message of the gospel. And I realized that that was what I needed in my life. I knew that I needed Christ as my Savior. And so that's where my walk of faith began in a real and personal way. Was back when I was about 17 years of age. So, when I talk to people about faith, my faith is not something that was given to me or something that I was made to do. It was something that I have chosen to believe and believe very firmly. So, more than anything else, I would say, that, I'm a serious follower of Jesus Christ. That's who I am. And in fact, all of our people that teach with us in MGI, they all love God, and they are all serious followers of Jesus Christ, and that's why we do what we do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. So why did you decide to become an English teacher to Ukrainians? And as to your courses that you offer, how much do these courses cost? And do you give classes only to Ukrainians, and why only to Ukrainians?
Okay. Well, it's interesting how I got started in this. I have always loved to teach, and I have taught some university courses. I'm a trainer. So one of my natural giftings is teaching. Back about 2007, I decided that I needed to be involved in some work outside of the United States. I'd never done that. And so I contacted Michael and Jan Gott with MGI, Michael Gott International. I knew that they were doing work in Eastern Europe and so on. And so when I contacted them, I found out that at that time they were offering English courses. That one of the things they were doing was teaching English, and that allowed them also to share the message of hope that's found in Jesus Christ. And so I said, okay, I think I can do that. I think I could teach English to people in another culture. And so I made my first trip then with them in 2007 to the country of Moldova. At that time, they were working with some groups there. And so I made 2 trips initially to Moldova, to Chisinau, and taught there. And that's what started then my journey of teaching English. In those years right after that, in Ukraine, there was such a demand for the English schools, the MGI English schools that Michael and Jan had founded there, that they've just focused there in Ukraine because the need has been so great, and the invitations are in fact, we can't even fill all the invitations that are offered to teach the live schools, as we call them, or in-person schools. Now, they started teaching English. They've taught other places, but they really began teaching English in Poland right after the fall of communism. And there was a great desire and need in Poland for English courses, and they did that for about 10 years. And then as in Poland, as more and more people became proficient in English, the need for the courses there wasn't as great. And by that time, they had established a lot of connections and relationships with people in Ukraine. And so the invitations began to come in from different cities, from different places that would invite them. And so that's where the focus has been now for a number of years, and will continue to be, again, because of the connections and because of the great need. I noted recently in an article in the Kyiv Post, an editorial by the Kyiv Post, again, saying how important English is to Ukrainian people, and encouraging them to pursue their English and to learn English. So that's how I got started in this. And when I got started, again, I found out that, yes, I can do this. I can relate to the students. I have something to offer them as a teacher because of my background. And so it's developed into a beautiful relationship. Now, you ask about the cost. When we're there with MGI to offer a live school, the cost is very, very small. I think it's something that is an equivalent of like $3 or $4 US. It's not very many grivna at all. And we want to offer these courses so that no one is limited from taking the course. We don't want to make it something that's exclusive. Now, because of COVID, we were no longer able to come to Ukraine until the COVID protocols change. So last June, we began the online schools, and so MGI began those, and I was involved. And so the school that's upcoming, April 12th through the 17th, will be the 6th online school that we've offered. And we have seen the enrollment in those schools go up. And we've averaged about, in most of these schools, at least the last 3 or 4, because we've offered them, by the way, nationwide. We've seen between 1,000 and 1,100 students a day in those schools. Now, the online schools, there's no cost for those. We're not asking for any payment for those. So those schools are being offered free. And really, the live schools more or less are being offered for free because the what we charge is so small. Anyone can afford that. In fact, many of my students told me what they pay in terms of grivna to attend our schools, what they might pay for one 30-minute English session. So that's what we're doing right now, with the hope and desire that as soon as things change in Ukraine, so that we can again offer the schools where you can gather large groups, then there are teams ready to come back to Ukraine. Now, you can travel to Ukraine because in America, the U.S. is a green country now, but we can't gather groups, and so there's no way to actually do the large schools.
So why are the English courses called MGI? It's a Michael Gott International. He was also my teacher. I remember it was in 2012.
Yes.
2014, as far if I'm not mistaken. Yes, and he's also a pastor.
He's an evangelist. Yes, that's true. Well, let me tell you a little background about Michael and why he feels so passionate about working with folks in Ukraine. And you're right, MGI stands for Michael Gott International. Now Michael Gott International is a nonprofit organization. It's not a church. But Michael began to come to Ukraine in the 70s, while Ukraine was still under the Soviet Union. So Michael has been coming to Ukraine for many, many years, and he's developed relationships over the years, and he had a real heart for the country of Ukraine. To see, once communism fell there and the doors began to open, his desire was to bring help and hope to the people of Ukraine. And of course, that is through being able to tell others how to have a relationship with God. And but the means of doing that is through English. So we're very serious about teaching English in a very, very good way, but we're also just as serious about sharing the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. The motto that we more or less have, and Michael will say this in the schools, is we want the rest of your life to be the best of your life. And that really has two levels to it. One, it means, yes, we want you to do better jobs, a better life, that things like that. But we also want you to have the hope and the joy that each of us has, the teachers do, because of our relationship to God. We believe that He makes such a huge difference in our lives through our relationship with Jesus Christ.
It's unbelievable. Since 70s, you said, but religion was forbidden in the former USSR. How come? How did he manage to come?
Well, he just visited the country. They weren't offering any courses. They really weren't doing. They just came to Kyiv to visit, and Michael studied in Edinburgh, Scotland. He had gone to school there, and was just drawn to come to Ukraine. So yes, he was there in days when you're right. You couldn't do anything. In fact, the KGB and others followed all of your activities. And so what it did was it gave him, he saw the Ukrainian people. He saw the need, and God put that on his heart, so that when it became available, say, how can we share the message that we have with the heart of the Ukrainian people? And the way that happened is through teaching English. And so it's been something that's been very beneficial, we think, for Ukrainians, but also for the work that Michael Gott does.
Okay. So do you teach church English or just general English, or you have separate courses for both these English? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think one that is important. When we teach English, we teach English. We do not teach in our courses, whether online or live in the live schools. We teach some of the best creative English lessons that we can. We never ask anybody to join any religious organization or anything like that. We say that we're not going to tell you one thing and then give you another. So our teachers prepare very heavily to come and to teach very practical, real English that is very helpful. And so it's not, to use an idiom here, it's not a bait and switch. We don't say, "Oh, come study English. Oh, we're now studying the Bible." No, if you come to our course, will we talk about God and how we'd want you to know God in your life? Yes. But we're going to teach you the best English that we can. Of course, you know that from having been my student and even recently online. Now, we have offered in the online schools, we've had an option that we've offered, and it's completely voluntary. We've said to, like the students in my class that you were in, when our course finished, when we did just the English lessons, you remember that I said to our students, if you would like to continue to study for 4 more weeks, 1 hour per week, we're going to do some Bible studies. We're going to learn English using the Bible. And we did that. And I had a nice group that studied, but that was voluntary and that was optional. And so and by the way, we have found that our students have been very interested in that, because we're not trying to press them to join any organization or anything like that. We're just saying even an intelligent person, it would be good for them to know something about the Bible. The Bible is quoted in great literature. You'll hear the Bible quoted in political speeches. You'll hear little snippets and parts of the Bible many places. So, and being the number one best-selling book of all time, it would be good for a person to have a familiarity with what's in the Bible. So, answer your question is no. We teach the best English that we can teach, and we think that's why so many students come to our schools, because that's exactly. In other words, we do what we promise we will do.
So, could you tell us one more time, when do the courses start? Like at what time, and will they be or next month or this month? So
yes, the next course that we're offering, which is an online course, is April 12th through the 17th. Mm-hmm. Now there is a deadline that's approaching, and it's possible that enrollment is filled up, but the date the deadline to enroll was April 6th, and a person could go to MGI, the number 4 UA.com. And that is the registration website. That's all in Ukrainian. And they can register for the courses there if the courses are still open. It was filling up very quickly. But that won't be the last one that we do. After this one in April, we'll offer another one probably, and I don't know the exact date, but it's either going to be in July or August. And so there will be another online course. Now, what's happening is that, we're looking forward to the day that we can bring a team back to Ukraine, and we can go to a city, Kyiv or Lviv or Cherkasy or wherever, and go to a city and offer a course. Those courses are longer. Those courses are about 9 days in length. They go Monday through a Friday, no class on Saturday, and then on Sunday, you're familiar with the big event we do called Super Sunday. Then we resume class on Monday and do classes Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of the second week. And then on the Thursday is graduation day. And that's always a fun day when we present the diplomas. And by the way, even the online courses, we are providing a diploma to each of our students who attends the online schools too. So we don't know when the in-person schools will start again. That's going to depend when Ukraine opens up enough that there can be large gatherings. But we will continue to do the online schools. And so the best way that a person could, there's a couple of ways that a person could stay informed about it. One is the MGI, and again, number 4, UA.com website. And then also on Facebook, there is a Facebook page for Michael Gott International. And that's a great place to, one, find out information, but also to just receive some really interesting little bits of information. When we do the Super Sunday for our online schools, we do those live on Facebook. So if a person wanted to hear Michael Gott or to hear music, they could do that. So I would encourage people to go to Michael Gott International and either like or follow that page. And that's another way that you can hear about the upcoming schools and so forth.
Don't worry, I've already dropped the link to.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. Thank you.
And I will do that on Facebook as well.
Okay, good.
So the link to in this description is below. All right. So, what benefits can a person get from these English language courses? Are they do you divide these courses into different levels?
Yes.
And what are your methods of teaching English?
Okay. Yes, we teach at 6 different levels, all the way from basics and beginners, all the way to advanced levels, and everyone in between for intermediates and crossovers and so on. And we in a live school, we test each person to try to place them in a correct level so that they have the best experience of learning English. On the online schools, it's really done by a self-assessment where the student reads or has something to look at, and based on that, they determine what they feel like is their level. And that's worked pretty well. Now, the methods that we use and why it's beneficial, there's a couple of things. One, our schools that we offer are conversational schools. They're not schools that involve writing or the teaching of grammar lessons and things like that. Those are all good, and there's a place for those, but our schools focus on the conversational nature of English and getting whether it's basics and beginners or even advanced level students to speak English. And that is particularly true of the more advanced levels, particularly from the intermediates and up, and even crossovers, is getting people to practice the English. Now, the other thing that's a benefit for us is that you're working with native speakers. And whether it's an in-person school or it's an online school, you're going to be working with a native English speaker. And I know that's something that through all the years that I've traveled to Ukraine, I've been there 12, 14 times, I don't remember how many, to teach English, is that students are always excited to be able to be involved with a native English speaker. Because I know a lot of times the English that they're learning, they're learning from someone whose first language is Ukrainian, let's say. And that's not to say that they can't learn English that way, but it's just always a benefit to actually listen to and to be taught by a native speaker. Like in this upcoming online school, we have between, I can't remember the exact number, but it's something like 48 to 50 native speakers that are teaching. So we have lots of teachers, and they're all good teachers. And so in an in-person school or live school, we'll use other creative methods like using music to teach English for pronunciation, for vocabulary. And so that's something that we do in the live schools. And we've tried to incorporate some of that into the online schools by sending students a link each day that allows them to hear one of the songs that we might use, for example, in one of the live schools. So it's I've just had many, many students who've been through, for example, one of my classes or one of my colleagues' classes, who, when they come away from the school, say, my English has improved. I'm speaking at a little bit better level. I'm speaking with greater speed. I'm speaking with greater confidence. And again, the key to that, I believe, is getting them to speak the English. One of the things I say to my students is, you have a lot more English in your head than you do on your lips. And so the way to get it from your head to your lips is by getting you to speak it. And so those are some of the things that that we do that I think are beneficial and helpful to those who are part of our courses.
Mm-hmm. And do American teachers correct the students' mistakes?
We do, but here's how we try to do that, Mark. Rather than do that in a negative way, we try to find positive ways of positive reinforcement. And and often our students give us permission to do that. They say, if I say something wrong, I want to know that I said it wrong. And again, we don't do that in a negative way. For example, what I might do is, if in a class I hear a student say something that is not correct, here's what I would say. I would say, would you mind if I showed you a better way to say that, a more correct way to say that? And in saying it that way, instead of saying, oh, you're wrong, that's not right, we'll say, well, let me show you a different way. And often what I'll say is, look, as a native speaker, if I were going to say that, here's how I would say it. And I think students receive that kind of correction better with a more positive reinforcement and encouragement in that. Because if we don't know if we're wrong, how then can we improve? We just need to do that in a better way, in a good way.
And do you use the same approach in university as a professor?
Yeah, I would. I don't think that would vary. If I were teaching Americans in a course, I would do the same thing. Rather than to chastise a student and make them feel stupid or embarrass them, I would find a way to do that in a positive way, because I know for me personally that if someone took that approach with me, I would appreciate that. I would learn better with that kind of an approach.
And you split also students into different age groups, correct?
Sometimes we do, yes. Particularly, we find that can be beneficial. For example, if we have a group of students that are at the same level that are, let's say they're 17 to 25, we'll try to put those in an age grouping because they relate to each other. And then if we have, like, a lot of times I'll teach a little older group, I might have 35 to 55, but their experiences are more similar. And so we find that it creates, whether it's online or in person, it just creates a classroom atmosphere where there's better learning that takes place.
I see. Okay. So how many students do you expect next month?
It looks like our enrollment will be somewhere around 1,600, 1,700 students. Now, what we've discovered is that not everyone who enrolls for these courses attends. Again, they're free, so there's no cost involved. But again, during COVID, Ukrainians, things are changing, and so they may say, "Oh, I want to do that," and then they get closer to the time, and work schedule changes or family life changes. we've had, again, during doing things online, we've had some challenges with technology. Not every Ukrainian has access to a solid internet or Wi-Fi access or even cellular access sometimes. And so that sometimes is a challenge. But like I say, what we've averaged these last few schools, which by the way have been nationwide. So last time I had students from Lutsk all the way down to Kherson. So, I mean, across the whole span of the country. We've even had students who are in the area that would be in the war area, in the Donetsk area, Lugansk area. We've had some students in some cities who've been able to be a part of our courses that wouldn't ordinarily be able to be a part of a course because we couldn't go, obviously, to those areas because of the war that's going on. So
interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's online has opened some doors. So we would see that in the future that we may be able to have a dual track when we teach. One would be a track of teaching in person in a specific city, let's say Kyiv, and then at the same time being also able to offer an online course. So we can see that we've really taken the COVID-19 and really made it a positive thing. It's really opened some more doors for us to be able to offer English to even more people than we have before.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so as far as I noticed from your courses, you are fond of idioms. And what three English phrases or idioms would you like to teach us today?
Well, I want to share with you three that I looked at some different words that I think are interesting, and they kind of fit within that category of idioms. And one of the things that native speakers love to do here is we love to take two different words and make a new word out of them.
Mm-hmm. Blending.
And so all of a sudden we've created a new word that that isn't normally in the dictionary. Now, sometimes if it becomes very popular, it is added to the dictionary. Sometimes we like to take a word and change it very slightly and make it different. Now, let me give you three words. Here's the first one. It's the word hangry. That's spelled H-A-N-G-R-Y. Hangry. Now, what is hangry? Well, here's the two words that have been put together. We put together hungry and angry. So if you've ever been in that place where you're in a bad mood, you're feeling frustrated and you're hungry. Okay, all of those things are combined. So that frustration plus hunger, we say, "Oh, I'm hangry." In other words, I'm hungry and I'm angry. So I hear a lot of people using that right now. I have even some in my family that I hear them using. They'll say, "Oh, I'm hangry. Let's go get something to eat."
And then I wolf down.
Yeah, wolf the food down. That's right. That's right. Use another good idiom. So there's a way of putting two words together. Let me share another one. And again, it's the same way. They've taken two words have been taken and put together. The word awesome, which means, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. And the word sauce, like a sauce you might put on something. So they put those two words together and come up with the word awesome sauce.
Some sauce. This is
awesome sauce. Word. Yeah. So what is awesome sauce? Well, awesome sauce is it means that something is awesome, but it has a pinch more awesomeness. In other words, it's a little bit higher level of awesomeness. So we say, I'm hearing some of the younger speakers use this word awesome sauce. Here's a sample. I'm reading an awesome sauce book about the influence of slang words in the English language. In other words, You could say, oh, that's such an incredible book. That is a fabulous book. Or here, awesome sauce. So we might even say of our interview today, oh, this is awesome sauce. In other words, this is helpful. So that's another new one that has been being used here and more recently. Now, will it get added to the dictionary? Who knows? Here's a third one, and it is the word ghost. Just like we think of a ghost, of a spirit.
Yeah.
But this word is often used with an informal meaning that has to do with disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you use it as a verb, to ghost means to suddenly cut off contact completely with someone. Now, it's often used in the context of someone in a romantic relationship. And for example, is that you like this person and you've been in contact, you've been texting, you've been calling, and all of a sudden they're not responding at all.
Yeah.
And so what will be said is that they're ghosting me. So they've just disappeared. So here's an example. I haven't heard from her in more than a week. She's totally ghosted me. In other words, she just disappeared. Now, we're hearing that word a lot too. So again, we've taken one word and we've created just a different meaning with it. Mark, this is what makes English so challenging for learners of English. The English language is not a static language. It is an ever-growing, ever-changing, dynamic language. And again, if I were, trying to learn English as a second language, I can see where it would become frustrating because it's like you change the rules all the time. You add new words and so on. So those are my three words for today: ghost, awesome sauce, and hangry.
So awesome sauce was definitely the new word for me, and the others I knew, and
Okay,
ghost just a new word for me. Maybe just a year ago, I got to know about this word. It made me laugh a lot. Yes, it's like to give somebody the cold shoulder. Something is similar. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Right. Yeah. Yeah. They're not going to pay any attention to you. Yeah, that's right.
It's life. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh. And the last block of questions: what do you think of Ukraine and Ukrainians in general? Maybe you tell.
Let me speak to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe advantages and disadvantages. Maybe like not just positive sides. Maybe negative sides of Ukraine. Yes, and what we need to improve.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I've been to Ukraine now somewhere between 12 and 15 times, and I have a lot of friends in Ukraine, and so I think I can truly say from my heart that Ukraine is like a second home to me because I've been, and I think I have a pretty fair understanding of Ukrainians. And of course, there are many things I love about Ukraine, whether it's from the country itself, the beautiful cities like Lviv, or the beautiful Ukrainian countryside that I've been able to drive through, or to Ukrainian food. And by the way, many of us who've taught in Ukraine many times, it's been over a year since we've been able to be in Ukraine. Many of us are having withdrawals from not having some Ukrainian food. So we're looking forward to that. But the thing about Ukraine that I really do appreciate are the people. And I don't say that lightly or flippantly. I've really come to appreciate Ukrainian people because one, you're resilient people. If you understand anything at all about Ukrainian history, you understand that Ukrainians are resilient. You also understand that, and I do, that Ukrainians are hardworking people. I'm amazed sometimes at how hardworking some Ukrainians are. I mean, they work more than one job. They have to make sacrifices to do the things that they're doing. The other thing that I appreciate about Ukrainians is their loyalty. Their loyalty as a friend. I've learned in Ukraine that Americans, sometimes we try to make friendships very light, we walk away from meeting someone one time and we say, well, they're my friend. And that seems shallow at times. But what I've learned in Ukraine, you don't do that. You get to know someone, but when you do say you are my friend, then you're very loyal as a friend. And so I know you have a word in your language that says heart friend. And so when I think of many of my Ukrainian friends, that they are truly heart friends, because it's not that we just have a shallow surface relationship. Often we talk about important things, and I find that those friends there are very loyal in that way. Before I came to Ukraine, you asked what did I know about Ukraine? I really knew very little. I knew that Ukraine had been part of the former Soviet Union, but really I didn't know anything about Ukraine. But now, having been there, I've probably been in between 12 and 14 different Ukrainian cities now. And so now I think I begin to glimpse. I certainly would not say I'm an expert on Ukraine, but I think I begin to understand Ukraine and its people and their struggles and their hopes. Ukrainians are different than Americans on one aspect, as I talked about, the friendship. But here's another thing on a lighter sense: you walk a lot more than Americans do. Americans, we drive everywhere. Ukrainians, you walk so many places. And you also, in your lifestyles, I tend to find that Ukrainians eat healthier than Americans. I also find that many Ukrainians are more disciplined than Americans. In other words, what I mean by is discipline is determined. Like you, for example, if you determine that you want to do something, you'll get in there and work at it. You really become determined with that. And that's something that I've seen in Ukrainians that I admire too. And there are many, many other things too, but those are a few that come to mind anyway.
Very interesting. And when you talk to your friends, your American friends, about that you've been to Ukraine, do they know anything about Ukraine?
They don't. Now, here in the past year or so, obviously, they've heard Ukraine mentioned in the news because of connections to like President Biden's son and things like that. But often there's a lot of confusion. And I'll give you one, for example. I can tell somebody that I'm going to Ukraine, and many times they'll say, oh, you're going to Russia. No, I'm not going to Russia. I'm going to Ukraine. Or they'll say, oh, you're going to the Ukraine. No, I'm going to Ukraine, not the Ukraine. It's just Ukraine. And so I think that many Americans don't know about Ukraine. And so, I'm able to help them understand more about what's happened in recent history with the revolutions and all the things, and how Ukrainians and Ukraine is working, at least the people are, to move forward with a brighter future. So, yeah, I think that like many Americans tend to know, we're not careful, pretty self-centered. So we know about us, and we know there's a world out there, but we don't always know a lot about that world out there. But your whole perspective changes, like mine did, when you begin to travel to a country, and not just travel as a tourist, but to travel and you begin to get to know people. and you build relationships with people, like our relationship, so that I know your heart. I know, I can listen to you, and I can hear those things. So that, I would encourage people to do that with anywhere, but that's certainly been my experience is you need to get to know the people.
Mm-hmm. And the last question, Walter. So could you share with us 3 tips on how to learn English fast? And is it possible to learn English fast?
Yeah, and that sometimes is a challenge, the fast part. And we really do that, though, in our English schools, because our online schools are 6 days. And even on our live schools, they're 9 days. I think the key is practice, practice, practice. As I said earlier, you have more English in your head than you do in your lips. Now, sometimes that's a challenge. So one of the things that I love to do in the courses that I teach are, are to connect people. Pardon me. I love to connect people. For example, is that let's say that you're at an upper level of English. It's hard for you to practice your English with a crossover level. It's frustrating because you don't feel like it tends to bring you down to that level. Not that that's bad for our, crossover students, but you need to be able to speak to people that are on approximately the same level you are. So I love to be able to connect people on courses so that they can either connect online, and easy to do that in many different ways. And I've even seen this when I've taught in Key, for example, in those courses where students meet each other, they didn't know each other, and even after the course is over, they form a little group and they meet together and they continue to practice their English. So to me, for someone to improve their English is to be able to practice it. Also, I would encourage, I think, reading books in English, watching movies, shows in English is another thing that can help you with vocabulary. Also, reading some online sources, stories, out of news sources in the U.S. that kind of keep you up to date on what some of the new vocabulary is. A third tip that I think helps a lot is when you're speaking English is to practice slowing down a little bit. Any of us in our native language speak very fast. And I know that's a frustration in fact, it's something we remind all of our teachers is that, hey, when you're teaching a course, slow your speed down. And when we slow our speed down, it helps our students hear more clearly and understand more clearly. I've listened to Ukrainians talk in the marketplace. You talk very fast too. When you're in your native language, you can do that because even with great speed, we don't have to hear every single word in our own language to understand something. We can fill in the gaps. But if we're learning a language, we do need to hear those things. And so one of the things I say to my students, even when you're speaking to someone else in English, slow down a little bit because it will help that other person to understand you better. And I think the other thing it does is that, again, any of us will have a little accent, and some will have a heavier accent on their language. And when we slow down, it lessens, I think, that accent being carried through so heavily. I had a student in Kyiv a few years ago that was the advice I gave to her. Her dream was to go to China and live there and teach English. And this girl had a very, very thick Ukrainian accent. It was really, I had to really listen to her. It was really hard. And she said, what can I do to improve? And this is the thing that I told her. I said, slow down. Now, here's a neat story. that young lady, I think through a lot of encouragement from a lot of people, but I think through the MGI school, she did that. She now lives in China and she teaches English there and she's doing great. But she needed that little bit of encouragement. And so it's wonderful. We have lots of stories like that of what we would call success stories of people went through our course, improved their language. Some of them got a better job. Some of them, it encouraged them to go on and do other things in their lives. There's one young man that I had as a student in Kyiv, again, several years ago. And I follow him on Facebook. We're friends. Well, he was listed in the top 30 entrepreneurs in Ukraine. And so, I had an opportunity to, have a small part, in his life of helping him with English. So we like to believe that when we come and we teach that we're having a small influence and an impact, both practically and spiritually in the lives of Ukrainians. So again, coming back to that motto, so that the rest of your life might be the best of your life.
Very good. Okay. So thanks a lot, Walter, for such an awesome sauce interview. I am looking forward to the middle of April, basically to April 12th.
Yes.
And to the beginning of our English courses. So stay safe. Thanks again for such a wonderful interview, and take care and see you soon. I hope
Mark,
so.
thank you for this interview. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always good to talk with you. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Good to talk to you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.